Well, hello, my friends. My name is Sergio Gomez. I'm director of 33 Contemporary Gallery here in Chicago. And right now, I'm in the exhibition of a solo show that's called New Light by Cameron John Knudsen. It's a wonderful exhibition. And today, we're going to give you an inside look. And you're going to hear also from the artist himself about the work that we have in the show. We really wanted to do this live session here with you and share with you a little bit about the show that we have here as well, and especially since we are not able right now to do public art receptions like we are used to here in the gallery. However, I'm still very excited to have here with me Cameron. So Cameron, come right in. How are you, man? Good to see you.
Hi, Sergio. How's it going?
It's going great. Thank you so much for taking the time, to be here with us. We've been really looking forward to chatting with you. We set up the exhibition just a few days ago. And it's been great. The work is fabulous. I think the atmosphere in the room is the right amount of pieces for the gallery space. And I'm really looking forward to chat with you about the New Light exhibition, which, by the way, we have a catalog that you can also get it online. And stick around. We'll tell you, how you can contact the gallery, how you can also find all these works online as well. So, Cameron, again, tell us a little bit about the New Light. What does New Light mean for you in this particular exhibition?
Sure. So my series starts out, I was doing a series on death. It was after the death of my father. Mm-hmm. It kind of shook me, and I didn't really know where to go to next. And I kind of started exploring a series with kind of like these deathly figures, using old paintings like Death and the Maiden, and Nightmare by Henry Fuseli. And I just tried to reinterpret them in a contemporary way where the figures weren't so mythological, but they were actual real people standing in for the figures of death, such as La Santísima Muerte, a famous female saint of death that I turned into a real person just to kind of get that the tangible quality of it. And then when I started exploring those paintings, I started figuring out these different ways of lighting techniques, and I started seeing color in the figures that I hadn't really seen before. The figures, they started to stop being just about kind of like this dark period and death, and I started really trying to boost and brighten up the colors, the chroma, and kind of like the vitality of the paintings in general. No,
that's fabulous. And it's really interesting because when you talk about death, by default, you also have to talk about life. There's no death without life, right? And kind of like this duality of things, death and life, which is something that I see in the work, So as you explore this idea of death and so on, we think of it as darkness, but then also your approach to color is very bright. It's very, almost like full of light. So I really love the presence of both things, as you talk about the title of the exhibition. Tell me a little bit about also, in terms of the exhibition, the range of, time in which this body of work was produced.
Sure. So it spans over about 4 years time space. The series started out with this. Can you see that there? The Antichrist painting. Again, this was one of the first that started off the series. I wanted to take one of the most iconic and most reproduced paintings, the depictions of Christ, and put my own spin on it. I do come from a religious background, and it affected me deeply growing up. And this is kind of my interpretation of it. It's kind of like in the composition of the Christ paintings, but instead of a halo, there's a halo of LED lights. It's actually hung up by yo-yo strings, so there's this kind of like fakeness to it, but also a realism as you get closer to the center of the painting that I was trying to go for. And then from there, I kind of like got a lot of the ideas from the other ones to continue kind of in that vein of exploring these dark subjects that have a history in art painting and painting history, and just trying to put my own touch onto them. And this is kind of what really started off.
Great, so it's really a nice point of departure as we kind of walk through the exhibition and highlight certain works. And I love also from a distance as you walk, because the door is over there, as you walk into the gallery. This is one of the first pieces that you see in the show. rightly positioned in the center of the exhibition. And from a distance, you pretty much you get the silhouette. Yeah, and as you get closer, you start to, decodify some of the symbolism that you're utilizing to, create this work. There's something that, is specifically very strong on this piece, as well as one piece that I would love to walk through, the veil. Tell me a little bit about, the veil as you're using it in your paintings. Let's go to the first one right here. And, it's also another painting that kind of welcomes us into the show. If you start from this wall going that way, kind of begins that narrative. And I think it's a great piece because, we have the skull, as a symbol of death, but then this woman also wearing that veil. So tell me a little bit about this piece too.
So this painting was inspired by La Santa Muerte. You could often find these candles at like dollar stores or supermarkets, and I would collect them from all different types of locations, and they'll have their own unique imprint. And to me, they're always very cartoony. Some of them are more detailed, but they kind of like lacked some depth. And usually they're in black and white. So again, I want to put the full color range in here. You could see the range from cyans and yellows to magentas. Especially even if you look at the skull, it kind of looks gray, but as you get closer, the shadows, you could really see the colors that were being used. And the veil to me was just a way, it worked out perfectly because aesthetically it veiled the figure, but you could still see the features of the person. And I actually have the same model in another painting that we could go to maybe later. But it also is like the cloak that the original paintings and depictions and drawings had. But just another way where you could still see the face coming through. It's a black veil, but there is a lot of color in the shadows and that, and it was just a way, it kind of worked out in both purposes to veil the figure and then also to kind of show some light and sheen off of it.
That's wonderful because it also, I think it adds to the mystery in which we are entangled with as we begin the exhibition and as we begin kind of like this journey throughout your exhibition. And one of the pieces that actually, one of the brightest works that's in the show that is kind of like in between these two very dark pieces is this one, which we're going to walk through in a second right here. And I would love to hear a little bit about this one. It's a beautiful work. It's probably, I think, the only one, correct me if I'm wrong, in which like there's like a bright green color tone around it. The figure is not looking at us, so it's facing away. So it's also kind of a different piece from all the other ones in the show where we can kind of look at the face of the subject. On this one, we can't, right? She's looking away from us. So it adds also in that sense of mystery that I love about the show and all the pieces that are here. So tell me a little bit about this work, if you don't mind.
Sure, yeah. So this painting is called Interior. It's based on the Danish painter Hammershwai's work. He did a whole series of works called Interiors based on these kind of very symmetrical, smooth lines of the interiors in the Dutch homes. And in his paintings, they're very gray. He used his wife, I believe, as the model usually, and she was always facing away. And it kind of always, I wanted to always tap on the shoulder to kind of see, would the person turn around? Like, what was the story? Who was the face behind that? And during this time, I was going through a bit of a breakup myself, and just felt myself in that same kind of situation. And instead of having it gray, I mean, I love gray paintings, but I tried to really boost the warmth, and the greens really felt on her skin tones. There's like a little heart over here. In her hair, it says the words love kind of in cursive. So it's kind of like this this warmth that's unfortunately it's turned away. It's cold. The person won't ever turn back. And for me, that kind of encapsulated that moment that I was going through. And yeah, there's a lot of little things that you could kind of pick up on as you get like look in little details of the painting as well, that I like the way it turned out.
That's great. And another thing that I really love about this piece too is the shadow, which is like there's a green shadow behind it. So just because there's a shadow now, it introduces a secondary person or individual, which again could be a a shadow of her, physically, or it could actually be an emotional connection with somebody else. It could be of this world or of the next world. And I love to find, those kind of subtle things within your work. Particularly, I had no idea that the word love was here until now you mentioned it, and I think that makes it even more interesting. Or the heart here on the painting here on the wood as well.
Sure.
Tell me a little bit, because for this show, as you're looking also into the history of painting, right, and finding also inspiration in some of these works, that then you do the more contemporary commentary with your work. Tell me a little bit about, also that connection to the history of painting or the history of art, and, how do you find inspiration from that?
Sure, sure. As an artist, I'm always looking for inspiration, but when something clicks with me, I like to write about it. I like to collect little snippets. I like to kind of create some kind of montage. Usually do a bunch of photo shoots for the same painting, do a few studies, try and really figure it out, but go into the history. Sometimes, why were they fascinated on this subject? Like Hammerschwei did a whole series of interiors, so it kind of felt compelled to at least do one, to kind of keep that dialogue going between the artists. And I often, pull from history because there's always iterations.
Right.
In my research, I think Death and the Maiden is one of the most reproduced paintings by many artists, and so I wanted to do my own take on it. I just felt like it was ripe for reinterpretation, and it doesn't mean that it can't be reinterpreted over and over and over. Those kind of tropes, they never really die away. So just trying to keep it alive and not lose the original inspiration.
Right. No, I love that. Again, that makes the exhibition even more interesting. What I would like to do now is we're going to walk to one of the main pieces in the show, which is a larger piece. We'll keep it a little bit from a distance to scare away the algorithms from social media that sometimes prevent news from being shown and so forth. So we'll do a quick drive-by with our camera here. But let's see if we can stand here on the side, and you can tell us a little bit about this particular work, which I'm going to put it here, kind of sideways here. And by the way, all the pieces that are here in the show, you can see them also, and they're available on RC. When you go to rc.net, you search for Cameron's name and you'll find him, or search for the Gallery 33 Contemporary Gallery, and you can find the actual exhibition, or as an online show in RC as well, and you can see all the works in detail. You can click, and even the ones that we cannot show, through social media. So, tell us a little bit about this particular piece, which is also the largest piece in the show. It occupies the center position here in the exhibition. It has its own wall surrounded by these two beautiful windows, which also have the white curtains, and this one has like the black veil.
Sure.
So I love that also play with the room here. So tell me a little bit about this work.
Sure. So this is this painting. I call it Nightmare. It's also based on, forgive the pronunciation, but I believe it's Henri Fuseli, his original painting, The Nightmare. You might remember it. It has the gargoyle who's kind of standing over the figure. And so basically, originally it was representing night terrors and kind of like the trauma of having a nightmare. And so, I set up a bunch of photo shoots and tried to just incorporate different things. Little things, kind of like there's a moon that's on the tattoo, again, representing night. The figure, instead of being a gargoyle, is an actual human. The hands are hyper-realistic, a little more realistic than like the looseness of the outside. Again, just to give that tangibility to it. And for me, it kind of put all those things together. The art history that I was interested in, these kind of modern colors that maybe would have faded if we would have tried to do these colors back then. Also, just having lighting techniques available to us, it made it much easier. So this is Nightmare.
As you work on a painting like this, something that I love about this one, besides the beautiful composition and things you have mentioned, like for example, the warm red shadow on the upper left-hand side, which the rest of the composition is quite cold. As you're working your composition and you're selecting your colors, are those choices that you have thought about before on the color scheme and how those uh, you know those spots of redness or yellows or blues are going
Sure.
to play around? Tell me a little bit about your process of constructing the painting.
Sure. So this is on the beginning half of this whole series. I was still working
Okay.
out a lot of things, but what I like to get is a trifecta of cyan, yellow, magenta. So you can kind of see magenta, cyan, yellow, some kind of triangulation. In
Okay.
some paintings it worked out better than others. Maybe we could get into that later, but I like to have that. And then I also learned on one of the paintings over here, Gemini, that to mix only on the canvas, to separate my brushes, I only keep a cyan, yellow, magenta, and just keep on switching back, and that way you never lose that kind of the full color spectrum. And you can kind of spot, the wall is blue, but there's pinks,
Right.
and every color. My goal is for there always to be one or two of the other complementary colors in the same little area. Is the idea.
Exactly. Yeah. There's no, even from a distance, may appear to be a flat area. Like even in your darkest sections, there's a beautiful coloration there, and going back and forth between colds and warm tones within that. So it's one of those things that when you look at this show, particularly, it's hard to see it on on a screen.
Sure.
Where you can really appreciate in person. So that's why we continue looking forward to a day when we can have again more openings and more events. But in the meantime, this is great. Cameron, let's walk to a painting that we have over here, which I'm going to turn the camera in a second. But in my opinion, it's probably, you tell me if I'm wrong, it looks like it's a self-portrait of some sort. You have long hair, so maybe it was like beginning of the pandemic or something. I don't know. You can give us a little bit of insight into this as well. So let's turn the camera around and let's talk about this one, which,
Sure.
by the way, is a beautiful painting.
Thank you. So this is a self-portrait. I don't like to do too many self-portraits, but this was, I was really trying to figure out the lighting schemes, trying to get all the colors that I wanted without them turning gray or muddy or, And this painting ended up being quite dark because of that. But that's also what I was going for. When I sit in a room and I see, you sit in the back of a blues hall and you're listening to music and you see like a white wall, it's painted white, but you see these blues and reds. It's hard to then paint those because if you were actually sitting there, your paper would be a different color. So that was kind of what I was trying to go for, is trying to create white light using these colors and having them not get muddy. And this is just a self-portrait of me indulging in smoking and kind of just sitting in the moment, thinking about all these colors and all the problems that I would kind of like later paint out.
So now my question is was this done pre-pandemic, during pandemic, or?
This was pre-pandemic.
Okay, pre-pandemic. Pondering on something the world was going to come.
Yes.
That's how I see it.
Exactly.
Very interesting, because even it looks like you are in an isolation, indoor, kind of a thinking, pondering about the future, right?
Yeah.
Or something like that. So.
And I have a self-portrait from a while ago of me smoking by a door. It's very gray, kind of like more of my older style. And this was just a way to revamp it, make it more contemporary.
Great. And, as we move into this side of the gallery, this particular painting kind of welcomes us into a series of portrait paintings we're going to talk about. And maybe at this point, before we actually go into those paintings, is to let's talk a little bit about also your subjects.
Sure.
Your models. Tell me a little bit about that. How do you select your models to work with, and particularly as we look, into starting this work with the portrait painting?
Sure. So actually, most of the models in the series are friends, artists, people I work with, and people who inspire me. Some of these people are painters who are amazing in their own right, and if I could just capture a little essence or something. I like to I like to portray models that I have a sense of who they are, and they could kind of put their own sensibility into the painting as well. I also love painting from life and just just for the study's sake.
Mm-hmm.
But these in this series have just a little bit of their personality maybe coming through a little bit. I was coming out of such a dark time that I was trying to channel that kind of same feeling in them too. Maybe bring out something negative from them, turn it into a positive painting.
Okay.
And kind of like alchemy.
Okay, perfect. And as we're gonna see in a second, you know, also your color palette becomes brighter. Some of the pieces that we have seen. So yeah, let's go right into it. I think it'll be great for our friends to take a look at that. So why don't we start with maybe these two right here, and you can give us any insights that you would like on these two pieces. All right. So yeah, so let's talk a little bit about about maybe this one, since it's kind of like right here, the center point.
Sure. So this is my friend Netta. She's an amazing painter, makes beautiful ceramics. And this is my friend who was also modeled for the Holy Death painting, Santa Muerte. And so this is the unveiled, the photo shoot was taken on the same day, same, at the back of my studio wall, and under the same lights and all that. But you could really see kind of the difference of, I mean, this is a painting, but this is pretty much how I saw it with my eyes, like all these bright colors. The wall is white, but because of all the shadows and stuff, there's the rainbow that's basically thrown out throughout the painting. It gets tighter in some areas and then looser in others. But what I like this space right in the middle. You could see the rainbow, so the color range going from red to orange, or sorry, blue to reds. You could see it in her, underneath her nose, the neck. Again, in these little flowers, there should be, in theory, every little square inch has all the colors on the palette. And obviously some areas don't, but I think it turned out well right along this middle part there.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And since we're here, let's also talk about this piece, which is also beautiful. The way, again, the color plays throughout the whole composition, creating almost like a halo effect all around, like, almost like self-illuminated painting in a way. Hard to explain, like a stained glass almost, although it's not broken into stained glass sections, but it has that radiance, that the color really pops at you, particularly here at the subject's forehead. Tell me a little bit about that.
So this painting is based on the painting Beatrix. Basically, I was going for a kind of profile picture with a bright red or glowing orange light coming from the hair. And so that's over here, kind of like the fiery side. And then in the center of the face, it all kind of comes together. You could see the full color spectrum. And it doesn't really, doesn't look too fake or exaggerated, right? I mean, I don't know really how to describe it, but.
No, it's beautiful. It's, again, one of those paintings that it radiates light, and you almost have to be in front of it to really capture it and get that color that calls you in, pulls you into the world, which is why I love it. Let's take a look at maybe let's talk about the last two pieces here that we have in the show, and then we can sit down and maybe have a little conversation. So let's talk about, I'm going to put the camera right in the middle of these two, and almost like two paintings which are almost like facing each other, having like their own conversation too. Tell me about these two paintings, and particularly this one as well. I from what I remember, this is one of your latest one, or the last painting that was created for the show. It seems also a little bit tighter in the way it's painted. So tell me about this.
Sure. So with these two paintings, this is actually the same model that was used in Nightmare, another wonderful Chicago artist. And this was more of a study. I was again trying to fix the things that maybe the problems that I came into with the self-portrait. And here it's a little bit brighter. You get all the colors, and it's still pretty loose. It was still kind of more of a study, trying to figure out what works and what doesn't really. A lot of these pigments, they don't all work in the same way. Like even if it's a yellow, it doesn't really work the same way. And then this was the last painting that I finished, and it's for a larger work, um, and it's basically, I was trying to get the full color spectrum in her hair, and so you could see the rainbow basically in her hair, and it comes together in the wall. Um, Here I was really trying to kind of like get those colors really boosted and not have it get really muddy. So that's kind of what this painting is. It's kind of like a study of what works and what doesn't. And a lot of these paintings are based on astrological figures or mythological figures, or, you know, like I said, paintings from history. And so a lot of these paintings are kind of studies for other larger works. I do have, there's kind of like an astrological undertone to a lot of them too.
Wonderful. Well, Cameron, this has been really wonderful to look at all these pieces and kind of get some behind the scenes, stories about them. So why don't we have a little sit and let's chat a little bit more about kind of your trajectory as an artist.
Sure, sounds good.
All right, so we're right now sitting in the middle of the gallery, surrounded by your work. Tell me a little bit about also, you as an artist. Are you originally here from Chicago, or where's your upbringing from?
Sure, yeah. So I grew up in Lake County area. I had really supportive teachers all throughout elementary school and high school that I'm sure a lot of people had the experience of doing the young authors, cover illustrations and that. And I would just I wouldn't do any other homework. I would just do like these book covers.
Yeah.
And like
that's your favorite homework to make. Yeah.
Get F's on everything else. And those teachers, they kind of just kind of stuck with it. I never really gave it up. And as I started reading more and kind of having more to say, it started having more meaning. Like it's a way for me to deal with things that I can't really write about or just take a photograph. The painting, it kind of fulfills a different need.
Well, that's really cool. What are some of the things that you enjoy here about the city of Chicago, being an artist here in Chicago?
Sure. I love the community. I have a lot of great friends here that are super dedicated, by any means necessary. They're making art and trying to get it out there. And having those people who are so driven, it really helps me to keep my art going also. And obviously before, when things were more open up, there's always the Third Fridays. And, and a lot of communities that get together, also the music community with the art community, with the filmmakers, and you kind of get a taste of everything. Right.
Which, by our friends, as also as a reminder, this exhibition is open right now at 33 Contemporary Gallery. We are right now open by appointment only, for obvious reasons, because of the pandemic. We are not able to have a big opening, as you said, at Third Friday like we normally do. However, make sure to contact the gallery. Contact us through Messenger, through Instagram Messenger, or you can call us as well, or go to our website, www.33contemporarygallery.com. Schedule an appointment if you would like to see this exhibition as well. And also, you can watch or look at the whole exhibition from the comfort of your home. Also, if you go to artsy.net and search for 33 Contemporary Gallery, you will see all our exhibitions, which this one is one of the ones that we are featuring right now. What does it feel to be sitting surrounded by your art? Because that's something, as an artist myself, besides being gallery director, is something that we make the work in the studio. We're surrounded by it, and there's a moment in which the art enters the world, and kind of like your kids leave home, right? Leave the studio, and then they come into a setting like this, in a gallery setting, and you haven't seen them for a while until you came back today for this conversation. So sitting, in front or in the middle, in this case, surrounded by your work, what are some of the things that that come to mind for you as an artist to see a completion of a body of work that for the last 4 years or so you've been arduously working at?
Sure.
And what comes to your mind?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you and Didi Menendez for putting this together. I've been really dreaming of having all these paintings in one location since I started. So I'm just really grateful to have this opportunity. And that's really been one of my goals, to get it in one room. So having it realized, last Wednesday when I dropped it off, I almost had a panic attack. Is now do I actually know what I'm doing next, but it's just kind of like a weight off. And so it feels really good to get it out into the world. And I have a whole bunch of paintings lined up after this. And I'm just really ecstatic to continue working on them.
And that was my next question, you know, kind of like where are you going next? Because also sometimes it's difficult when you finish a body work, you're working towards the deadline for the show, you finish the show, you go back in the studio, and like, okay, now what, right? So are you planning is a continuation of what we have here? Is something totally new, or is a surprise, not for us to know yet?
Sure, so a little bit of each, right?
Okay.
All of the above. It's always a continuation. I'm going to take the best of what worked in this series and bring it into the next one. It's not going to be exactly the same. I guess you'll have to wait for that, but I am continuing in figurative work. I'm working on a lot of floral paintings as well. Like last night I'm working on some flowers, just trying to diversify the portfolio. And my goal is really to continue pushing color and brightness and really exploring these different configurations of color that like work for me.
Right. Well, and Cameron, for our friends who would like to also find you on Instagram and see more of the work that you do and behind the scenes and things like that, well, can you share that, and also your website?
Sure. So my website is CameronJohn.com. That's Jon, CameronJohn.com. You could also find me on Instagram at Cameron.John.art. Again, that's Jon. And you could also find me on artsy.net, is it? Yep. Cameron John Knudsen, and you can find the collection of works that's in this gallery today.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, you know, for bringing the work here, for preparing for the show, for this wonderful gallery walk and conversation. For those of friends who join this live later on, while we had already started, just wait until we close it and we save it, and then you can go back and, you know, watch it again from the beginning as we kind of walk through the whole show with Cameron and giving us some insight, you know, behind the scenes of all these pieces. And of course, if you would like more information, if you want to contact the gallery, just find us at 33contemporarygallery.com. You can also find us on Instagram at 33contemporary, and of course on rc.net. Just look for 33 Contemporary as well. And thank you for joining us as well. If you have some questions, comments for us or for the artists, you can put them under this video. You know, we'll be checking them out afterwards too, and engaging in conversation there. So make sure that you put those there. We'll get right to the comments in a second. So thanks, Cameron, for your visit. Thank you for the show, and I will see you next time.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, my friends. Have a great day. Goodbye.